We'll start the evening. If you would, please join me in a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. The first order of business is the agenda. The agenda has, it's all regular agenda items. First agenda is the review of the West Fargo COVID-19 mask action that the committee is recommending. And the second item is a review of the Sidewalk Improvement District 6054.
I'll make the motion to approve. This is Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson, for the motion. Is there a second, please?
Make a motion to second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdovic. Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. First order of business is a review of the West Fargo COVID-19 mask action. It's a document that has been prepared through the guidance of city commissioners. This has been an ongoing discussion for a number of weeks at different levels. And at this point in time, I would like to call on our legal counsel, Mr. Shockley, who has did the wordsmithing of this document. Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. I think I will go through each page and just describe what the intent behind each of the sections was. On page 1, the intent was to highlight that this new mask strategy is being implemented, if that's the Commission's direction, is being implemented in conjunction with North Dakota Governor Burgum's North Dakota Smart Restart Plan guidelines that went into effect on Friday, October 16, 2020. The Cass County is currently in an orange category, which means that there's a 25% occupancy with a cap of 50 people for businesses. And so we wanted to create a uniform document so that if a business from West Fargo asked the city for what are the requirements, we would be able to provide them one single document rather than multiple document sources. The first section, after it goes through that introductory portion and describing the different categories and designations, are definitions regarding face covering, business, social distancing, and households. Paragraph 2 on the second page is that City of West Fargo is implementing the updated North Dakota Smart Restart Plan guidelines, and that's to make sure that we're operating in conjunction. Section 3 really addresses what are the limitations that we want, that the city would be placing, or recommended limitations that would be placed on businesses. That is consistent with the North Dakota Smart Restart guidelines of the 25% cap with 50 people. Then we get into the specifics regarding restaurants. One of the requests from the working group was that all individuals who would be entering a restaurant from the time they enter the restaurant until they sit at the table would wear a face covering, and then while they're eating, they would remove the face covering. With the liquor establishments, it's a similar type of restriction in that they should limit their occupancy to 25% with a cap of 50 people. The committee also wanted to draw attention to public transportation, including rideshare services, Uber, Lyft, and taxi services, and recommending that those types of businesses that are picking up passengers from different households, that both the driver and the passenger are recommended to wear face masks. Consistent with the North Dakota Smart Start guidelines, once again, we're going to, for large indoor and outdoor gatherings, that would be limited to 50 people. I know historically that has been come before the commission for decisions about what's permitted and what's not permitted. We just wanted to set that forth in the directive. And then if for large outdoor gatherings, indoor or outdoor gatherings, they can be approved by the West Fargo City Commission and the Fargo Cass Public Health during this ORN period. That would require the city of West Fargo would require event planners to submit their logistics and emergency operations to the city administrator no later than 30 days prior to the event. Section 5 encourages all people to wear a face covering in all indoor settings where they expose to non-household members and where social distancing of 6 feet or more cannot be assured, and in outdoor settings where there is exposure to non-household members unless the 6 feet space exists. We did create 10 exemptions for face covering. Those are for children younger than school age, some persons with a medical or disability condition that prevents them from wearing a face mask, persons performing job duties where a 6 foot distance is not achievable, persons participating in athletic activities where a 6 foot distance is not achievable, but face covering is inhibiting the activity, persons directly consuming food or drink, so while they're sitting at the table, they do not have to wear their face mask, persons driving a vehicle alone or with passengers from the household, however, carving out that requirement that if they're providing commercial rideshare, Lyft, or Uber, or taxi services, that they would need to provide a face covering. If you need to remove your face covering for security purposes, persons voting, assisting voting, poll watchers, etc. However, face coverings are strongly encouraged. Persons engaged in religious worship activities, however, once again, face coverings are encouraged, and persons giving a speech or performance broadcast to an audience. This mask strategy does not prohibit businesses if they want to report, if they have a mask policy in place and someone is not cooperating with that, they can still report a trespass. There is no penalty regarding this requirement or this strategy. There was some discussion at the work group in that there was not really a desire to have a penalty to really match up with Fargo's. And then the effective date, if this is something that the city wants to go forward with, it would become effective tonight at 7 p.m. And it would remain in effect till Governor Burgum modifies the Smart Start Plan guidelines and or the underlying state of emergency has ended, unless it's been modified by the president of the city commission or by motion of the majority of the West Fargo City Commission. I can certainly answer any questions that you may have. We tried to take a comprehensive approach at this and try to integrate our proposal along with the guidelines that have been implemented by Governor Burgum.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Before we proceed, I'd like to thank the working group, Commissioner Simmons and Commissioner Olson, and Mrs. Fisk, representing staff, for your guidance and your work on this. Appreciate it very much. The next part of the process that I'd like to do this evening is that I'm going to ask each of the commissioners to address any of the specifically the document as a whole as to their feelings about it, and then as well as if there's some line items that you want to discuss. So we'll go by commissioner, and we'll start with Commissioner Matty George.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to maintain my trail of thought in this, so I decided to write down my position, so I'm just going to read it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not going to debate the effectiveness of masks. People have already made up their minds on one side or the other. The question now is in regards to the enforcement. With the mandate being proposed, it really doesn't change anything. The people who choose to wear masks will, and the people who don't want to are going to continue to not wear them. All this really is a strong suggestion. It should continue to be voluntary for private businesses to choose to require them or not. The government, us, should not be telling private businesses what they can and can't do, and as a customer, you can then decide if you want to go to that business or not. So, as it stands, there are no penalties, but let's say we did decide to force the issue with penalties, which I am adamantly opposed to. Now we are going to create more issues. Do we really want to use our law enforcement officers in this way? I guarantee that they don't want to ticket people or arrest people for not wearing a piece of cloth or paper over their face. This would be a misuse of resources and only create more tension, and there's already enough controversy regarding law enforcement. We don't need to add more. It inevitably will create conflict, and some may become violent. Is this what we want? Do we really want to see our friends and family getting arrested for not wearing a mask to get groceries when they have no prior record and are good citizens? Do we want our neighbors reporting each other because they catch you not masking up? Is this the community culture that we want in West Fargo? For me, the answer is a resounding no. So what are we accomplishing with any of this? The proposed mask mandate is nothing more than virtue signaling from our city imposing our will on the people. It will only make it more difficult for people to live their lives. The woman who called in and left a voicemail was literally in tears, begging us not to do this. She has a health condition that prevents her from wearing a mask, but she is continually denied service because of her condition. I understand that the idea is to help people, but ultimately I believe we will be doing more harm than good. Therefore, I do not believe we should impose a mask mandate of any kind. Instead, our leaders need to come up with ideas to protect our most vulnerable populations and continue to allow the public the right to make the best decisions for themselves in regards to both their health and their business. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Are there any specific items? You're talking in general terms of the document. Is there anything else additional that you'd like to address?
No, sir, that'd be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Commissioner Jurdevik.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to follow up, Andy. You know, I think I'll start by simply saying, I mean, we've all gotten tons of phone calls, emails, and we've had lots of conversations on this for, I mean, in all honesty, for months. And, you know, it seems like half the people I talk to are on one side, half on the other, and I think in talking with my fellow commissioners at times, I think we can all agree to that to varying degrees. I think what we need to start doing is listening to the medical community, and instead of all the armchair quarterbacks that are out there with you know, citing unclaimed sources as to the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of masks. The message from the medical community is overwhelmingly that masks will decrease the spread of COVID-19, which will subsequently help keep our businesses open, help keep our schools functioning, and help, you know, decrease the number of deaths that we're experiencing in our state. So I support taking an action. I actually look at this document, and the thing I don't like about it is it's basically, to me, it fails in the same way that the guidelines from the state do, in the sense that it's basically asking please. And we have proven for months that that hasn't worked. That's why we're at where we're at as a state. And although I agree with Mandy in some sense, I mean, I don't think anybody's talking about arresting anybody, though, for not wearing a mask. I believe there has to be a little bit more than a please. I mean, I think it says strongly encouraged 18 times in the document. And that's, to me, where it falls a little short. However, if that's the best that, as a commission, that we can move forward with, then I will support it.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevik. Anything on a line item that you'd like to address? Specific language.
You know, I don't think there's anything specifically in there, you know, that outside of the general comment that I think it needs to have just a little bit more teeth in order to get people to actually wear masks.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevik. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. This morning we met as a group, and as you know, we've been working on this off and on over the last couple of weeks, and I support the directive, however you want to term this. We've proven that we can't seem to turn the tide right now to decrease our numbers of COVID. And like both previous commissioners have stated, both sides. I can understand the arguments both ways. I just feel we as a commission need to side with the health officials and issue this directive to encourage people who enter public places to wear a mask at all times. As far as any individual language, I have no issues with any of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. First of all, we need to make it clear that this is not a mandate. I don't like mandates because I think a mandate should come with fines. I mean, otherwise, what's the point of it? As Commissioner Olson said, we sat down and actually zoomed in and went over this, and we did correct a few items that we both felt, surprisingly enough, we agreed upon. And so I just think this, to me, this is the last shot across the bow. And we've got to make people realize that if they don't start, whether they like it or not, if they don't start wearing masks and we get further into this, we're all done. It's over with. If we go critical, it's over with, folks. There's no bar openings anymore. So I like the wording. I like what we did to it. I like everything in it. But I really feel that now when we're done, Melissa, if we approve this, Melissa's got to get on this, Tina. We got to get it out. We got to explain to people why we did this. And that is because, again, this is the last shot across the bow. We have no options after this other than to go if we go into critical. So I definitely, again, I don't like mandates. I do not want to go down that road. But that's what compromise is all about, and I think this is a very good compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Mrs. Fisk, representing staff.
Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners. Staff, we have a different, we have a protocol in place on how we're dealing with things right now because we are in orange. Doors are shut, the public can't come in, rooms are closed, we do Zoom, we wear masks in the building, and that's just out of respect for each other. In going through this morning with the committee and reviewing what John had prepared, I was very comfortable with the fact that it was a happy medium because I understand the people that are more comfortable with people having a mask on. I also appreciate the people that are like, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't feel I should have to wear a mask. In talking even with our police department, I agree. The reason that this doesn't have more teeth to it, like Commissioner Jerovic is asking, is because our police officers don't have time to be going out and, doing all the calls that it would take every single time somebody gets upset because somebody doesn't have a mask on and you just get them out of my business. And, we're trying to find a happy medium and hope that the public will respect the fact that there are some people that are truly scared. And we need to be respectful of our public. And as someone who loves the city of West Fargo, I don't like masks, but I will wear one if it makes somebody else happy. I will, I thought that the committee came up with a really good compromise. I respect all of your opinions, and we'll do whatever it is you'd like to have us do.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Great comments by everyone. Thank you. With regard to Commissioner George, I couldn't agree with you more. If this is a mandate, I could not vote for it. If this has our law enforcement community trying to enforce this, I could not vote for it. But today, and as I've told you, I get 4 updates a week from public health, both from state public health once a week and Fargo Cast Public Health 3 times a week. And today I took particular attention and took some notes. And to Commissioner Jurdovic's comment, you're spot on. We have to look at the science and the healthcare professionals. At the present time, our spikes in our community are 18 to 29 years of age. That's our seniors in high school, all the way up to 29. That's the largest category that are getting the virus. The next age group is 30 to 39. Now, it's easy for the public to say, or for us as commissioners to say, well, that's the bar crowd. Well, that's true of, not the 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, but so those are seniors in high school. And we have experienced firsthand in the city of West Fargo, the best soccer team in the state of North Dakota didn't play in the state soccer tournament this year. Cheyenne High School was undefeated, and they were locked on odds to win that. They didn't get to compete. They had been hit with the virus infections 3 different times. Our West Fargo Cheyenne High School football team has been hit once, and of course they're tied for first place. This is very personal from those young people's perspective of what their senior year didn't materialize to what it might. Right now, at Sanford in Fargo, their COVID unit has 80 people. 80 people are in their COVID beds today. At Essentia, there's 22. A sobering fact is that this is not Essentia's largest facility. Duluth, Minnesota is. They have more COVID cases in Fargo, North Dakota at Essentia, than Duluth does. Again, there's 80 people in the COVID unit at Sanford, Fargo. Many of our other hospitals across the state are having to defer taking more patients. They're sending them to Fargo because Sanford, Fargo has greater capacity. As of today, there are 29 long-term residents in our nursing homes in Cass County that have infected with the virus. It's coming back into our nursing homes, our most vulnerable population. And there are 22 long-term staff members that are infected right now. So part of the problem, both in the healthcare industry in Western North Dakota, as well as our long-term healthcare facilities, is the fact that they've got the beds, but they don't have staffed beds because their frontline people are becoming infected. So that's a misnomer when you start talking about what beds are available and what beds are staffed. It's 2 different statistics, and I'd encourage the public and my fellow commissioners to follow that, as to whether it's staffed beds or if it's capacity, because Fargo has more capacity for beds, but they can't staff them at this time because of infections in the manner that it may be right around the corner. Those numbers that I just shared with you do not include Monday and Tuesday's testing. We know that we have 1,000+ infections today. They're also working very diligently on the logistics of the vaccine planning if and when a vaccine comes out, as to who's going to get it first and who's going to get that. And I'd encourage all of my fellow commissioners and the public that's watching this evening, as well as communications, to share Fargo Cass Public Health's website, which is www.fargocasspublichealth.com/taskforce. If you want to see the dashboards, if you want to see the graphs and all of that type of thing, it is readily there available to the entire public. And it is very sobering information. At the present time, our long-term healthcare facilities are being tested once. With the testing that took place Monday and Tuesday that has not been recorded as of yet, as to the positives and the negatives, it's a real possibility that all long-term facilities will now have to go to 2 tests per week. Everybody in the facility, staff and the residents, will have to be tested because of the numbers increasing. So all of that being said, we have to be very diligent in our communications. And you're right, this doesn't have the bite that we, that some of our residents want to have in this particular document. But at the same time, there's a great deal of people that don't believe that government should be telling you how to run a business. And as a long-term businessman in this community, 43 years that I worked in the community, and guiding businesses as one of the executives of it, I can only imagine how difficult it would be right now to be in business. And for somebody like me or my fellow commissioners to tell me how to run that business when I'm trying to make sure that those wonderful employees that I had working with me, that they're safe. But at the same time, the fiduciary responsibility of an executive of a company into making sure that they're being able to pay the mortgages and all of those types of things. So this is extremely difficult from my perspective with my work history and as my new role as a West Fargo City Commissioner. But Mr. Simmons made an absolute fantastic point. We're in the orange. There's only one way to go if it gets worse. And all non-essential businesses will once again close. So with all due respect to the public, because as all of the commissioners have stated, over the last 2 months, I have literally got hundreds of emails, phone calls, texts, and our society is absolutely split on this. This last 24 hours has been a little bit, probably a little more slanted of the public asking us not to do a mandate. So I tell you this evening, if this was a mandate, if we change any of the language that has been presented this evening to be a mandate, or to have fines or enforcement, I can't support it. And I want the public to know that. And that's the conversation that all these great commissioners that have been engaged in this whole policy discussion, that's been first and foremost. How do we protect the citizens? Every one of us took an oath to protect the citizens of West Fargo. And I can tell you, by working with this five-person commission, we all take that extremely serious. So when we say we urgently recommend, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't to tell you what you should do or how you should raise your children or any of those types of things of how you should live your life. But we are at a critical state in this whole discussion with this virus. Because one of my benchmarks has been what happens when we can no longer take those infected citizens and put them in the hospital bed that they need, put them with those wonderful first responders and healthcare professionals to do everything that they can to save their lives. Whether they're 50 years old, 40 years old, 80 years old, or 90 years old. Without doubt, I think this will be the most challenging time of any of us that serve on this commission, whether we serve for 4 years or we serve for 8 years or we continue to make a career out of this. So again, I'm going to appeal to the public. This is, as Mr. Simmons has said, this is kind of a last alternative, because if we go red, the ramifications of that will be critical to our entire business community. It will take away services to the patrons of our community. So I'm going to ask the public this evening whether you think like Commissioner George, Commissioner Jurdovic, Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Simmons, or myself, or even the staff, to reevaluate, take another look at this. Because if I'm on the street, I'm not going to tell you if I walk into a one of our local grocery stores, and I'm not going to try and shame you, and that's part of what the discussion has been in some of the emails we get, that people are going to do that. Don't do that to the public. Don't do that to your fellow citizens. Do what you think is right for you and your family and those that you care about, whether it's your fellow workers or loved ones. So I'm done. I apologize for the length of my comments on this, but our alternatives are extremely bleak if we don't get some control on this, if we don't get some cooperation, if we don't be concerned about how this terrible, terrible disease transmits. So in the words of Commissioner Jurdovig, we got to listen to some of the science. We got to listen to the healthcare professionals. And I realize that there's doctors that also want to make comments about mask wearing and things like that. I've read all of that too. But I want you all to be safe, and I want you to take care of yourselves. And I just ask for your consideration that we take this to a new level to protect the citizens of West Fargo. Thank you. Commissioners, what's your pleasure on this new mask strategy for the city of West Fargo?
I would make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
I will second it.
Commissioner Olson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the City Commission's COVID-19 new mask strategy as of this date, October 21st. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We have a 4-to-1 vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business. Forgive me, I got lots of papers here and I'm trying to get my agenda back in front of me. Is with regard to concrete repairs. Mrs. Fisk, are you presenting this?
No, Mr. Shockley will be presenting this.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Shockley, please. This is a review of the West Fargo Sidewalk Improvement District 6054, which was an initiative in 2018 to repair sidewalks throughout the city. Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President, members of the West Fargo Commission. What you have before you are sidewalk assessments for parcels that shows to have the city complete the work and be specially assessed. Sidewalk assessments are different than regular special assessments. With regular special assessments, they go to the Special Assessment Commission and then they come to the City Commission. With the sidewalk assessment, it goes directly to the City Commission. It also is a truncated process where you give notice to the property owners. They're allowed an opportunity to make the improvements themselves. They can either choose not to do the improvements, or they can actually just decide that they want the city to go ahead and do the repairs. And so often the lists start out much bigger than the final assessment list. These assessments, work has been completed on properties. Most of these properties are in developments that were on vacant lots or infills for lots that hadn't had the sidewalks completed on them. These are for lots that the homeowner chose not to complete the sidewalk on. So this has been properly noticed. They've been given an opportunity to fix the sidewalks themselves. They either decided they didn't want to complete them or they wanted the city to do it. The city completed the work and then sent notice to each, a written notice. It goes beyond because it's a truncated process, it also requires specific notice to each property owner. So we have to send notice to each property owner by certified mail what their proposed assessment is and request if they have an objection that they provide that objection to the city.
We did not receive any written notices, and we got all certified return receipts back, so we know the property owners did receive notice. These are assessments. With the sidewalk assessment, it's only assessed over a period of 10 years. Because this is a smaller amount, the city is internally financing these rather than bonding for them. And so Tina can certainly provide what the interest rate on the assessments would be. But once again, these are all properties that were noticed and decided to have the city do the work. And some of the larger assessments would be due to the fact that it's for a townhome complex or some other commercial property.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Are there any questions of Mr. Shockley? Mrs. Fisk, could you address the interest rate that the city is charging on these assessments, please?
Well, actually, that was set up through discussions with our finance director, and is actually a rate that is lower than the bond rate, but more than what we can get if we had left the money in the bank account. So it actually is a win-win for both sides.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Shockley or Mrs. Fisk?
I would make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Jurdevig seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the Sidewalk Improvement District 6054 citywide sidewalk improvements. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. That concludes the agenda. Commissioners, do you have anything that you'd like to bring forward this evening? Open discussion? Go to the order.
I have one thing that's a little bit humorous.
All right, Commissioner Jurdevig.
Could be helpful. So I wanted to give us all feedback based off of a 4th grader that lives in my neighborhood. Her name is Julia. And she happened to be watching our meeting on Monday night with her mom, which was pretty awesome. But she says that we all say way too much. So, as people that have to speak, I guess we need to all do better.
Please pass on our apologies to that lovely young lady and her perception of us. Thank you. Anything else, Commissioners, that would like to come before this meeting this evening? Mrs. Fisk, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you. Nothing? Commissioner Simmons?
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson?
I second that motion.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
All right.